Hey there, it's the Board Game Bandit. Today I want to talk about out-of-print games. This is a concept that has always fascinated me. I just finished a demo series for a local gaming convention on out-of-print games. Admittedly, I was very nervous about this series because of possible theft. I had heard that, in years past, attendees would swipe games from the free-to-play area despite many of them being extremely common and of nominal value. By their very definition, my out-of-print games would be much more valuable and, in many cases, irreplaceable. But I decided to do it anyway and just have friends help me watch the items like a hawk. Since this was a guided demo series, I'd be in the area at all times, rather than a free-to-play area where my games would be stacked in large collections. I'm happy to report that all of my items are still in my possession, but the point still stands. I didn't bring Mystery Express, one of my most prized possessions, because it was my first anniversary gift for my wife, because of the sentimental value it has. It pretty much never leaves the house. The point is that these games mean something, and the question is why, and that's what I want to talk about today. As I was actively recruiting players for demos, someone said something very interesting to me. He had no interest in playing out-of-print games, because if he did, he would want to buy them and he would be upset that he could not. On the surface, this makes a lot of sense, but in many ways it does not, at least not to me. The first distinction I would like to make is that there is a difference between out-of-print and simply being unavailable. I'm no expert on board game publishing, nor do I have any desire to be. Tom Vassell of the Dice Tower often talks about Vassell's Law, that if a game is good enough, it will eventually be reprinted. I don't believe this to be true. When a game goes out of print, it could be for any number of reasons, most of which are unrelated to the actual quality of the game. It can be due to licensing issues, complications of mergers or divestitures, overhead of production, publisher schedules, or any number of factors. But the good news is that for any number of games not actively produced, there are still copies floating around that can be retrieved before they go out of stock. My goal was to give players a chance to experience something new like that, games that, if enjoyed, could be purchased during this sunset phase. I had no idea that some local game stores were paying attention to my demo list. They brought their copies of some of the games and sold them to people who attended my demos. It was smart on their part, but I would have loved to coordinate more, and I only learned about this at the convention itself. And this is why I place such a premium on the experience of trying something new, because of the memory it creates and the memories it can create. Why do I consider my out-of-print games irreplaceable? Besides the practical reason that there is simply a lack of replacement copies. To many, games are just stuff, and that's true to an extent. But if you stole one of my games, you not only take the game itself, but the memories that come along with it. One of my favorite things about the gaming industry is that shared experience we get to receive together, and there is something truly special about an experience you get that most others won't. It becomes personal, like this game exists solely for you. Because of a game's rarity, your participation in that game becomes special, at least in my experience. Video games, another passion of mine, often have the same print run problems. It's often due to the fact that they simply do not produce new copies of a game for a system that is deprecated. As much as I'd like new copies of Nintendo 64 games, it just isn't going to happen. There was a particular game that I missed during its production run for the Wii called Xenoblade Chronicles. The game had a great reputation, but was expensive and scarce, and I don't necessarily value video games at the price for which it was listed. But, you probably guessed, my wife bought it for me as a gift one year and probably overpaid for it. How was the game itself? It turns out it was one of my all-time favorite experiences playing a video game ever, and I'm extremely happy that I got a chance to experience it. I would not want to lose that memory, and I think about how great it is that I got to experience something that most would not be able to. Is it better to have one great experience and the ensuing remorse that it's over, or to never experience something special at all? That sounds like a familiar adage about love. I truly believe that some games went out of print because the gaming world wasn't ready for them. They were ahead of their time. Gaming has grown so much in recent years that it is easy to believe that risks taken years ago that failed would now succeed due to the diversity of audiences we've attracted in the meantime. So how do you get these games back in print? You promote them heavily and you get people clamoring for them. This is what I was trying to do at the convention. One of the best examples of this is Medici, a game that was out of print most of my gaming career. The few times when it was available, I could never pull the trigger and I would lose my chance quickly to someone else. But it was reprinted eventually because it was in demand, and now I happily own it. I've shown it to 15 people within the last week alone, and they all loved it, and I suspect some of them will purchase their own copy. Mystery of the Abbey went years without a reprint, but it came back. I think you need to know whether or not to act on a game should it be eventually reprinted, and my goal was that a demo series specifically designed for this game would help in that regard. You'd have a chance to play it before you had a chance to buy it. This is often useful for games that are even in stock, but it's particularly true for games that are out of stock, because you won't have much time for deliberation. The only question that remains is how much these games should be valued if you want to purchase one from the secondary market. This year was the first year I participated in such endeavors, and I'll talk about those two stories in the coming weeks. As much as I hate to admit it, I will probably never own a copy of Nightfall Eastern Skies, one of the most elusive games that I desperately want. According to the price history, the last new copy was sold for $175. That is roughly the cost of everything I own for Smash Up, and it would probably be irresponsible of me to pay that much for it, as much as it kills me. I really hate the secondary market. Players will keep a game new and shrink so that no one can experience it until their price is met. I would argue that this makes the game unplayable and effectively worthless as a result, but it's the reality of the situation. Can I put a fixed dollar amount on any particular game? I can't. We have an embarrassment of riches in terms of choices for games, and I could easily buy 5 or 6 games for that same price. But if it truly matters, if the game feels like maybe it was designed specifically for you, then maybe it could be worth owning if sentimentality matters that much. There's a good chance I'll eventually cave and meet that price, but it sends an important message to my gaming friends if I did. I would be saying that this game is extremely valuable and irreplaceable, yet I am choosing to share this experience with you because you matter. This is part of the reason why I'm so attracted to out-of-print games, because it's a chance to offer a unique experience to someone as well as yourself and let them know how much they matter through the game you're choosing to share. Also, if I'm being really honest, every time I play a game, there's a chance I'm going to buy it if I like it, and I can't buy everything. So does that mean I can never play new games? I certainly hope not. Living in the golden age, I wonder if Kickstarter will be a boon to reprinting games since publishers can offset the cost with pledges. It seems like now, more than ever, it's a good time to take a second look at the games that have come before. I know Reiner Knizia has been doing this with many of his games, such as Through the Desert, Ra, and Tigris and Euphrates. It would be great to have a head start on collecting your own copy, and I hope that I was able to provide that advantage to someone. Does this experience matter, or am I the only person who feels this way? If the demo series was any indication, I'm not, as I had several people come back over and over again because they recognized a chance to do something different from your typical game night, which was my intent from the very beginning. I may even do the series again, and I want to thank everyone who was a part of it. Just because a game is out of print doesn't mean it should fall out of play, and every chance I have to experience these games, I'm going to take it. I hope you will too. Thanks for listening. I'm the Board Game Bandit, and our game has just begun.